Press the bell icon on the YouTube app to never miss a video from News Laundry.
Let's talk about objectivity and more specifically, objectivity in journalism.
Who in the world thinks that alt news is politically balanced? Let there be a discussion on this. If you tell me that alt news is balanced, then you tell me the wire is also balanced.
Objectivity is not he said, she said journalism. It is not simply finding somebody to express the opposite side of an opinion. That is not objectivity.
So objectivity is very, very difficult to. I agree that it's not particularly desirable.
Who gives a shit? That doesn't matter. You don't need people's opinions on a fact.
This is a News Laundry podcast and you're listening to Let's Talk About.
I'm Abhinandan Sekhri, and in this episode, we'll explore objectivity as a pursuit for journalists. Is it possible to be objective? Is it sensible? Or is it even desirable? To explore this, we would first have to understand the concept of objectivity itself. We'll hear from some Indian journalists who have pretty strong views on this.
Objectivity सिर्फ इतना नहीं कि मंत्री बोल दिया और उसी को लेकर छाप दिया.
I think the word objectivity is a bit too strong, and I don't think it's humans cannot achieve it.
I think that is the most dangerous development after post-truth that is taking place, evolved in the last year or two, where people want to be closed.
ज़्यादातर हिस्सा पत्रकारिता का या किसी अखबार का या किसी चैनल का अगर पावर के साथ अलाइंड हो गया है, तो फिर हम किस ऑब्जेक्टिविटी की बात कर रहे हैं?
If there is any scientific experiment that a journalist sort of recapitulates, we are like big blundering people in a quantum experiment where just our presence sends the experiment rushing one way or the other.
We also hear what some international figures have to say about objectivity in journalism.
We can't have it said that we never had anyone on ever once who had a different opinion, but even when we do, we're going to make it clear it's a very special occasion, a departure from practice. Well, then you might as well say you're not in the journalism business.
According to the Oxford English Dictionary, the word objective, when relating to a person or their judgment, means the quality of, quote, not being influenced by personal feelings or opinions in considering and representing facts, unquote. Objective comes from the Latin objectivus, a word that acquired frequent usage beginning in the 17th century. Not surprisingly, this was the period of the so-called scientific revolution and the Enlightenment, when social outlook started being shaped by rationality instead of religious faith. Allow Robert Jensen, professor of journalism at the University of Texas, to explain how objectivity in science cannot be equated to objectivity in journalism.
When science tackles a question it can answer, and you follow those rules, then you follow scientific objectivity in a sense, then you get results you can trust, and we know things. So most people don't challenge that either. The problem is, when we talk about journalism, journalism isn't science. Journalism goes out in the real world and observes and reports. Journalism doesn't engage in experiments on human beings. Journalism doesn't have a scientific method because it's not doing science.
Here's Jaggi, as I like to call him, or R. Jagannathan, the editorial director of Swaraj.
See, I think it's an attempt should certainly be made to be objective, but true objectivity or objectivity that is seen as objectivity by all people is probably an impossibility, because as human beings, we have certain predetermined views, our approaches to things. So the same person seeing the same thing will look at it differently. So true objectivity is not really possible, but balance and reasonable fairness is a good objective.
What would you say if, you were to address a bunch of journalists who are just entering the profession? And often it's thrown around, in articles, in very serious pieces. And I'm not just talking Twitter, by people who understand this. The word objectivity is very loosely used, just like secularism was at once upon a time.
Right.
How would you instruct journalists that this is what you should aim for and this is how you will achieve it? What do you do to be fair, if not objective? Now, dear listener, here is a thought experiment. Actually, it's not a thought experiment, it's a practical. If right now I ask you to take a few seconds and take an objective view of yourself on your own objectivity, so objectively scrutinize yourself and tell me, are you objective? You think you can do it? Think about it. I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, You can't. Or can you?
For you to claim on your own that I am able to see beyond my own opinion and beyond my own vision and beyond my own perspective is a highly narcissistic and arrogant position. I don't think anyone can see anything without their own perspective. That's a given. And once your own perspective comes in, it can no longer be objective.
Right.
Now, even when you choose, say, in a newsroom, which stories are done and which stories are not done, that's the beginning of no objectivity.
In journalism, media ethics traditionally revolved around these two important words: truth and objectivity. In fact, one of the first major invocations of these words as twin concepts goes back to 1926 in the Code of Ethics of the Society of Professional Journalists, short form is SPJ. Quote, "Truth is our ultimate goal," unquote, said this code, and, quote, "Objectivity in reporting the news is another," unquote. In 1996, the same society would drop all reference of objectivity from this very code. We'll come to more on that later. American author and journalist Christopher Hitchens, speaking to the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe in 2007, took New York Times to task for what he considered to be their pretense of objectivity, saying that the concept has to do less with the diversity of perspectives and more with one's treatment of evidence.
That it's the pretense that when they're reading the New York Times, they're reading a paper that doesn't have a bias. The affectation of objectivity. People use the word objective as if it meant even-handed or fair-minded or impartial or bipartisan. None of these words mean objective at all. Objective means that in a confrontation with the evidence, you would be willing to change your own mind, and you'll continue to subject yourself to that implied challenge. That's what objectivity means. The New York Times presents itself as a paper that has no opinion that you could detect from its reportage. You'd have to go to the editorial page to find out what its collective view was. Well, that's nonsense. I mean, I don't think anyone reading the New York Times can't tell what its collective view of matters is from its quotidian coverage.
For consumers, it does not matter whether a particular media group has a particular corporate sponsorship or political party backing. What matters is that what it is getting to consume. If there are articles, news, which offer diversity of opinions, he's happy. Means he has no access to those corporate boardroom decisions and this and that. So it has to be seen from a consumer point of view, and also the digital space has provided enough space for articulation of diverse points of view. So I think it's better than it means it is very, I think, a false nostalgia of saying that the age of journalism has gone, it has become embedded journalism. It is fashionable to say, but it's not actually true.
Now, just because you have facts and you have transparency and you have full disclosures and you have certain data which is accurate and corroborated does not necessarily mean that every report or piece of journalism will be perfectly balanced or even balanced at all. But at least the facts will be respected and sacrosanct. Also, context matters. In fact, I believe, and many others have said the same thing, context is everything. If a person talks about Charlie Hebdo cartoons being needlessly provocative the day 11 people in that organization are shot dead, you cannot reject that commentary on facts, but it does tell you much about where that storyteller is coming from. Or if someone has been lynched to death and you are talking about what are the kind of provocations that have happened in the past, it may be true on facts, but it is stripped of context. And something stripped of context is just foolish. And just like context, facts also matter. When a story is told, the given backdrop, the details and the particular tone tells you much about the storyteller. You may like or dislike that storyteller, but at least you will have to respect his or her facts. But in today's day and age, where reportage is more opinion and less specific detail, the grey area of context becomes even more grey because everything is opinion and context is altogether missing. So even when the facts come in, they come in as side notes. So therefore, it's very hard to really call that journalism a reportage. And that is actually lost not just for the news community as professionals, but also to ordinary citizens who expect news to be, as is often called, the first draft of history.
That was just a sneak peek because this episode is behind a paywall. If you want to hear the entire episode and more amazing podcasts like Let's Talk About and NL Hafta, subscribe to News Laundry. Support independent media, support News Laundry.